Welcome to the darkest hour, where your nightmares come true. I am your host, Zavtar. Now, this is actually something a bit different than what I usually do. And yes, I'll be speaking in this somber tone, which is quite scary when reading scary stories. And that is what this podcast is about. What else did I have to say? I guess that's about it. So, basically this podcast and this several podcasts in the future will be about an hour long. And it'll be quiet and stuff like that. So, because I'm doing it at midnight and I don't really want to wake anybody up. So yeah, that's the intent behind the nice and creepy voice. And I hope you like the sound effects. I have a couple of other sound effects which I'll be playing during the podcast, hopefully. And this one takes a few seconds, but you'll hear it. There we go. I hope you heard that one. I really hope you heard that one, because I don't want to sound like an idiot. Yeah, alright. You got the thunder, the bells, you got which is kind of creepy. There we go. Yeah, that one's a little bit more out there. And then you've got this one. Wait for it. There we go. Now, I realize that this is more of like an October type thing, but since it is about midnight, I would really like to stop doing this more often. And yes, in the type of voice that I have right here. So, I hope you guys will enjoy this, and I hope I get to do this even more. So, don't forget to leave a like, and comment, and subscribe right down at the bottom. And yes, I will be keeping an eye. Actually, no, I won't be able to keep an eye on the chat because my internet sucks. And if I have opened my webpage, I'll probably not be streaming anymore. But anyways, let's start. Now this is a story by Lady Sparrow. The Little Girl Who Wasn't. I lived in a house from hell for 4 years, from age 11 to almost 16. There was constantly something happening. Doors flying open and shut. Voices, footsteps. Nothing ever stayed where you put it. I was always alone there, a lot, because both my parents worked and I was constantly terrified. One of the most gut-level disturbing things, though, was the little girl in my bathroom. Every time I walked past my bathroom door, which was constantly since I was right outside my bedroom, I saw a little girl with blonde, curled hair and a rose-colored dress. She just stood there, staring, looking like a photograph from 1905. I started keeping the door closed so I couldn't walk by without seeing her, but she was always there when I opened it. Once I stepped in past her, I couldn't see her anymore, but I could feel her there. She scared me, but I felt really sorry for her because she was trapped there, just like me, but probably forever. As the years went by, and things in the house continued to get worse, she started seeming darker. I started feeling like she wasn't really a little girl. I knew there was something ugly in the house, and I felt like it was presenting a sympathetic image to me. Then I started thinking I was completely losing my mind. One day, when I was 14, I had a friend from out of town come and stay with me for a week. I told her anything whatsoever about the house because I didn't think she would come if I did. Right after she got there, she was sitting in my room, and she was in the bathroom. About a minute later, she walked back in with a puzzled look in her face and said, "So there's a little girl in your bathroom?" Yes. She hangs out in there. Blonde hair, pink dress? Yes. You know that's not really a little girl, don't you? I almost threw up. I was so relieved and terrified and excited and ready to run out of the house screaming. She wasn't use she wouldn't use my bathroom the rest of the week, and I started using it as little as possible without pissing off my parents, who did not want to leave me. Eventually, we moved out. I could not have been happier. I distanced myself from it mentally as much as I could. Then when I was 18, I took another friend on a road trip to pack a few things I'd left in the house. My parents hadn't managed to sell it, and I wouldn't be for 5 more years. The minute we got on a property, my friend seemed uncomfortable. When we came around the bend, in the long, steep driveway, he went. I lost my spot. Sorry. He went completely white. I could tell something was wrong, but he insisted he was okay. So we got to work. After a while, he asked to use the bathroom, and I directed him to mine. Not 20 seconds after he left, he came running back in, gasping for breath, and slammed the bedroom door behind him. He started babbling about a little blonde girl who wasn't really a little girl. All of a sudden, he went dead still, looked me in the eye, and very solemnly said, "She's not happy with you. You left and you weren't supposed to." We threw whatever we could grab in 2 trips in my car, after I walked him to another bathroom and waited outside the door, and then got the hell out of there. Now that, I have to say, was a very, very creepy story. If you liked that story, comment down in the comment section below. Now, there are like a lot of things that kind of scare me. I'd have to say, like, if you're sitting there in the middle of the night, dark, pitch black, so pitch black you can't even see your hand in front of your face, that scares the living crap out of me. Like, because you don't know what's going to be there. Like, I'm serious. It's like very, very creepy. Especially at the wee hours of like 1 a.m. or like 3 a.m. Those are like the scariest hours, I have to say. Well, I'll be right back. There's gonna be like a little dead silence for a few minutes. Maybe you'll hear stuff, maybe not. I really hope you don't, because that'd be creepy. But I'll be right back. I am back. My apologies for leaving for like a couple of minutes. I had to use the restroom. It's kind of hard to do that and have a live stream going at the same time. And plus, a lot of things have been happening to me this weird week. But something that just has scared the living crap out of me just now. Like, if you can't tell, I'm breathing kind of hard. But what happened was, I was going to the bathroom, and the light doesn't work into the rooms. The bathroom is in the other side of the room, one of the rooms that doesn't work. Like, the light doesn't work. And the bathroom is one of them that doesn't work either. And with that, there's a window in the bathroom that's kind of sits high, but it's not like it's a bathroom window. And we don't have any blinds on it. Well, as I was using the bathroom, it's pitch black in there, I have to say. There's a little bit of light showing from the outside. I look up, and I see a face. Yes, a face. It scared the living shit out of me. I hurried up, and I'm kind of breathing right now. It creeped me out. Just. Alright, now, the second story is a story about photographic memories from, that's a weird screen name, Annie Bananas. I'm reading this off a website because, well, I don't have any authentic papers with true ghost stories. These are the only ones that I could find. I'll probably be more prepared next podcast. I have no idea when it's going to be because this is about an hour long for midnight, and yeah. Okay, here we go. I grew up in Mexico and was always very into the outdoors, hiking, camping, rock climbing, etc. One summer when I was 19, I went on a 4-day, 3-night camping trip near my parents' house on my own. Okay, first off, why would you go on your own? That's scary. Especially at night, in the woods. No telling who could hack your head off. But it might sound weird, but I had been to this area many times, and it was quite safe. Anyways, I brought my camera and took a lot of pictures. When I come back, I developed my film. There were 3 extra pictures I didn't take of me sleeping, one each night. None of my stuff was missing or stolen, and nothing happened, but it freaked the hell out of me. Now, I have to say that was a short one, but quite honestly, that would also scare me. Like, really. Whoa. I don't know if you heard that, but there was a howling outside. That was kind of creepy. But anyways, let's get into the next story. It's called Losing Yourself in China. That's also creepy. So when I was barely 20 years old, I was traveling with a small group of people through China. And we were spending about 2 months in, I cannot pronounce that, Qinghai province. I hope I'm saying that right. Which used the best part of Tibet. Our destinations were specific, town to teach us English. Oh, this was a girl that lived in China. Nice. I think I already read it. My apologies. But we had been stopping often in towns and small cities along the way. One day we arrived in a rural town, very small, nothing usual. We spent only a couple of days there, shopping for food at markets and walking around to see the sights, although there weren't many. This was in the dead of winter, in February, and all the grass on the hills and plains had grown in the town was dead and brown. The overall feeling was that of the normal kind and any rural place has in the winter. At this time in my life, things were going amazingly, extraordinarily well for me, and I say that because my teenagehood had been rather darkly overcast, but the overwhelming good luck of being able to travel and these close friends I'd made in the last year had more than changed my feelings and attitudes toward life. It was like I was a whole new person. I was ecstatic to be in Tibet. I went to sleep with a smile on my face every night. In our second day in a small town, I woke up feeling a little odd. Not bad, just odd. Like my normal thoughts. My apologies, the screen kind of switched on me. Like my normal thoughts and feelings had been turned down low, like on a dial. We decided to go for a walk on the hills right behind the town, where there was a small summit which had a pile of rocks and some prayer flags. To be honest, there were little altars like these on every hill, but it gave us something to do. As we hiked up the hills behind the town, I started feeling a stranger. I wasn't scared. I didn't feel angry or any strong emotion. In fact, it was like emotion that was trickling out of me. Somehow, I was getting blanker and blanker, emptier and emptier. My mind started feeling a little hazy. And more I felt like I simply did not care about anything. A small and rapidly dwindling part of myself started to panic. Knew that something bad was about to happen. But it was like my own inner voice had slowly getting quieter and quieter. I remember we reached this little summit. I simply sank to the ground next to the pile of rocks without meaning to. I started tuning out the voices around me and fixed all my attention on the little pebbles in the dirt. I began tapping one against the other repeatedly. Do you know the kind of horror that is opposite of feeling scared or feeling anything at all? The kind of vicious hideousness of a fly buzzing against a closed window for hours on end in an empty room. That was my feeling, my mind. It was demonic in its meaninglessness. I touched my face and I felt that I was grinning at nothing. Through all the emptiness, a thought floated in forefront of my mind. You should just die. At first it sounded totally reasonable, but something in me fought it, and I was momentarily troubled. Right then my group started to walk down from the hill, and I followed. The further we walked, the more normal I felt, until we left the town that afternoon, and I was totally freaked out. When another girl, Hannah, mentioned in an odd offhand way that she had felt very strange and depressed while staying there, I told her that I felt the same. When the group leader mentioned that a local had told him that the town had been plagued with a rash of young women under 25 committing suicide, Hannah and I went white. Now, that, I have to say, was kind of an eerie story. Like, if you think about it, a lot of superstition in China revolves around stories like these. Like, it's very creepy, in fact, because if you think about it, that summit up there, cliff, and in that cliff may have had a lot of deaths. A lot of women in that town probably committed suicide by jumping off those cliffs. That, I have to say, is creepy. And I hope you guys have enjoyed those two stories, because we're about to get into a sad story about a dog. The story is called What the Dog Knew from... Okay, I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but it looks like it says Eon Flux 072. In my old apartment, my dog would on occasion, looked down the hallway towards the bedroom from the living room and growled for no apparent reason. Also on occasion, when I was sleeping in the bedroom, she slept at the foot of the bed. I would wake up with her staring intently at the door and growling. She was a big girl, 40 pounds, of Great Dane, Catula, and Slava. So I'm there for a couple of years of this, thinking, okay, my dog has a good imagination. Wrong. The night I woke up to not my dog growling, but barking for all she was worth, and not at the door. She was barking straight at me. I opened my eyes pretty much immediately, and there was a blur of light leaning over me. Very close, certainly less than 6 inches from my face. It was not distinguishable as a person. It was more resemblable as a person-sized version of a colorful nebula you might see in a picture of a science magazine. 3-dimensional. I immediately got the distinct impression that this thing had been watching me sleep for God knows how long, and how many times before, for all the clarity of that distinct feeling. I had no sense of what I wanted, whether it was malevolent or just curious. I flipped right out of bed, jumped backwards to the other side of the bed, too terrified to scream, and the blur of light receded and disappeared over the course of about 3 seconds. My dog was going absolutely ape. So shortly thereafter, I asked the building manager if anybody had ever died in there. She investigated that, and came back to me a couple of weeks later with a yes. A woman had died of a drug overdose in the apartment in 1995, so 12 years earlier, shortly after having her child removed from her custody because of her addiction problems. My dog did still growl at the hallway from time to time, but never I saw it again. I moved out about a year later. I've had other encounters, but this thing was literally inches from my face, watching me sleep, getting shivers now, just writing about it. Now, tell me in the comments section below what you would do if you woke up with a light that were literally inches above your face. Like, seriously, inches. Because me personally, if I woke up to that, I would just be like frozen. Like, I feel like I would have sleep paralysis, just sitting there, looking up, watching, because that would scare the living hell out of me. Because I'd be sitting there, wondering, what would go through my mind would be, what the hell is this? What's going on? Like, all the main things that people would say when something strange is happening. But then again, if it didn't go away, I probably would act like him. I'd probably jump out of bed and run out the door, probably run out the house, and just be like, nope, I'm out. But yeah, I honestly have no idea what I would do, to be exact, if I'm being really honest. Because probably, most likely, I would go into sleep paralysis, look up and see it, and just freeze. Because I would have no idea what I'd do. But yeah, that is very creepy, and I would not go down in that hallway. Because if I had a dog, a Great Dane, to be exact, that would bark down the hall, I would personally move out, even if the dog was barking for one apparent reason, which that would be a really good reason, that scary nebula. That would be very scary. Alright, so this is the next story. There's something on the stairs from Snarky Chew. That's a nice name, I like that. So when I was a kid, I would race up to the top of the stairs as fast as I could, like it was some sort of silly game. Well, I must have been 5 or 6 at the time, but I knew I was very little. Somewhere along the way, a voice at the top of the stairs started to whisper. It would make bets with me, such as, I bet you a penny you can't make it to the top of the stairs. I don't really think there was a certain amount of time or anything. As I said, I was very little, so I probably didn't have any counting abilities anyway. I recall just sitting at the top of the stairs, having conversation with this voice about the betting, of course. Eventually the voice, it was like a whisper of a man's voice, not my own voice, in my head. I started to bet me my life instead of pennies. It'd say, I bet you your life, you can't make it up the stairs, blah blah. As I got older, it stopped. I never really thought about it at all. I never really mentioned it to anyone until one night I was sleeping over at my brother's place. I was about 18, he was about 22, and we were talking about spooky stories. Out of nowhere, I brought up the voice at the top of the stairs, and my brother got all quiet and weird. Before I even mentioned the betting aspect, he said, "Did it make bets with you?" We both looked at each other, horrified. It certainly was freaky after the fact. I shuddered a bit. A lot of bad stuff went down in that house with my family at the period of time in my life, and my mother, a heavily religious lady, said that there was a lot of evil in our lives at the time. I don't at all think our place was haunted, by the way. It was built in the late 70s, and as I got older, I never experienced anything like that again. Now, personally, if I had a voice that was making bets with me, I would probably not do what it said, especially if it was betting me my life. Because if it was betting me my life, I would be freaked out and honestly have no idea what I would do. Okay, next on the podcast is The Drive-By from formerly... I'm not finishing that name. We were camping once, driving through some city. My dad was driving, my mom on the passenger seat, and I was kneeling behind them, leaning on the boot that separated the truck from the camper. It was evening, not full dark. We weren't really talking, and my mom was looking out her window when she screams, "Oh God, oh my God, Gene, did you see it?" My dad says, "Yeah, I do. I'm going to slow down and let them by." He slowed the car on the right past. He slowed and the car on the right past us. I couldn't see inside, but their window was down, and the arm hanging out of the window looked to be that of someone impossibly thin. I asked my mom what she saw, and she said it was nothing. My dad backed her up. Years later, I asked about it again. My mom said it was a skeleton. It was no mask because you could see through the jaw, and it had a tongue, and yes, it was death. My dad backed her up, but years later, after my mom was dead, recanted, saying it was a mask because nothing could survive like that. Now, reading that story, I have to honestly say, gave me the chills. Like, I'm serious. Like, I'm sitting here, and I feel like holy that scared the crap out of me. I got a Twitter notification, and that was just like, it scared me. But yeah, I'm serious. Like, I literally got all cold. Like, seriously, like my fingers are cold, my arms are cold, everything just got cold all of a sudden. And I'm not turning on a heater because if I do, it'll overpower my voice. So yeah, but that I have to honestly say, that story gave me the chills, the literal chills. Because if you saw death driving by you, what would you say? Like, literal death. That, I would have to say, is scary. Now let's get to this next story, which will actually be a bit of a doozy. It's I want to say this is a kind of funny story, but I haven't read this yet, so it might be a very scary story. It's called The Haunted Strip Club from Dinosaur Dance Party. I like that name, by the way, Dinosaur Dance Party. If any of you are any kind of animator, will you guys animate that, like a dinosaur dance party? Because that would be very entertaining, and I bet you people would watch it. Okay, so this was when I used to live in a different state. I got a job working as a cocktail server in a strip club, which was a good choice for me at the time, as the club was very fun, kind of metal punk vibe, and also very popular with the lesbians. And since I was going through the process of coming out as bisexual and was in a very radical funk corporate society, men let's take that money phase. I'm not one of those people who thinks stripping is a super empowering, but it was a good fit at the time. Now, one thing I want to mention in this story, this is a female. It doesn't really say it, but I can tell by context it's a female. And let's keep reading. Also, while I was there after about 6 weeks, I would often have terrible, suffocating feelings, almost about to have panic attacks, and terrible migraines while working in the club. I would often feel panicked and scared, but I chalked it up to be a stressful job in a strange environment. I never had these feelings anywhere else but around this time. And so the club was really kind of messy. Not dirty, but just filled with things. Lots of tables in the bar, lots of speakers, and extra crap in the back storage room behind the stage, and a tiny crowded dressing room for the dancers. Behind the stage there was kind of storage room area that had several dressers and mirrors in it, as well as an old comfy couch in case the dancers wanted to use an extra dressing room or a place to nap, but no one ever actually used it. This room gave me the worst suffocating panic-inducing vibes of all, and I had no explanation for it. So I would often be at work until 4 a.m. or later. Since I didn't have a car, public transportation wasn't running, and it was in kind of sketchy neighborhood. I would wait until one of the dancers was done for the night, and she would drop me off at home. This was often after my own shift had ended. When I was first started working, I would spend the extra time trying to do side work, cleaning and straightening up like a good employee, but after a while I would often just hang out in the back room studying, since I was also in grad school at the time, until I started completely freaking out in the back room, and when I would leave to go sit up at the bar or in the dancer's dressing room, the feeling would mostly go away. So also, when this stuff started to get worse, I have to add that some of it was around Halloween. So I was watching a lot of scary movies, and I was also smoking a ton of marijuana, so both of these things might have had some effect on my psyche. But also, these feelings never happened anywhere else in this time. I started to kind of bring it up to the dancer that drove me home. She said the back room also creeped her out, but didn't go into any detail. So, one night after closing, I was carrying a box of extra glasses in the back room, and I heard the most terrifying sound of my life. It was like from a horror film, a long, stretched, almost electronic music, but just one tone of almost a chainsaw like reverberated around the entire floor and walls. I dropped the box, screamed, and ran out to the floor. The bartender said he had heard a noise as well, but not as loud as me and without the vibrating floor walls, and started checking the sound system, telling me some of the music equipment had probably just started messing up. This happened at least 5 more times while I worked there. Sometimes other people heard it, sometimes just me, always when I was walking into the back room. Twice, when I walked into the back room, the light would flicker off and would be replaced with a red glow, like someone had put a red light bulb. Both times that happened, I ran out and got the bartender, and they would check the light. It would be totally dead, not working. After a while, I was constantly shaken and didn't want to tell him every time something happened, since I was afraid they would think I was crazy. After the noise and red light, I would never go to the back room, even when I should have been cleaning it. One time, I was standing in the hallway between the dancers' room and the back room, half-heartedly sweeping the floor and staring into the back room. I was starting to feel the panic in my chest, and I kept telling myself to look away, look into the dressing room, but I couldn't stop staring, like I was transfixed. And in the corner of my eye, I saw a reflection in the mirror, set up, leaning against a dresser in the back room. I forced my head to look, and I saw in the mirror 2 legs in black ripped tights floating about a foot. Lost my spot. Floating about a foot from the floor, swaying back and forth. I threw my broom and screamed as loud as I could and ran to the bar. I was convinced one of the dancers had hung herself in the room. I could see it so clearly in my mind. Of course, when we went back there, nothing was there. One of the dancers was convinced that the room was haunted and I was seeing a ghost. She thought maybe someone had killed herself back there. She wanted to get me some of her friends to do a Ouija board about the bar and the ghost, but I was too terrified. Around all this happening, I felt I was losing my mind. I was having panic attacks, migraines, sleeping with my lights on, was terrified of my own shadow, and carried pepper spray everywhere I went. I may have just been a combination of everything in my life, sleeping with hours, grad school, dealing with my own personal stuff, but I've always been a high-stress person who's working a lot more stressful jobs since then. I have never experienced anything like that ever in my life. About a week after I saw the legs in the mirror, I was working one more shift before taking a week off to do some research for grad school and go on a long weekend trip with my girlfriend. This was near Halloween, so the club had kind of gone all out and had goofy decorations and costumes. I usually dressed in all black anyways, and I tried not to wear anything too sexy or distracting, so customers would mostly leave me alone and concentrate on the dances. So this day I wore a black skirt, and a t-shirt, but had my face painted like a Dia de los Muertos sugar skull. Oh, it's a type of skull that they use for the Day of the Dead. It was mostly white with jewels, and it was rad. Since I was so freaked out all the time, the club, I started asking if I could leave around midnight and would catch the last bus. But this night my friends were meeting me to drink at the club after my shift. I was near the end of my shift and was taking off my apron in the dressing room and leaned over the dancer's mirror to check my makeup, and that's the last thing I remember until I was being shaken awake by one of the bouncers with a friend and my girlfriend by my side. I was in the haunted back room, laying on the couch, and my face paint was completely smeared all over my face. They said I had disappeared for about 45 minutes until they went looking for me and found me asleep, and had been trying to shake me awake for almost 2 minutes. I was completely hysterical, had no idea what had happened. My clothes weren't disturbed. My tip money was still in my apron, and there was almost no way anyone had been back there all night. I was almost afraid I had been drugged, but right after this evening I went to a doctor, no health insurance, so this was a big deal to me. I had gotten checked out and had them give me an MRI since I was afraid I had a brain tumor or something. That made me lose my mind. They suggested I speak to a psychologist. After the night, I had quit the job and never went back. Besides those terrible events, I loved working there and made a lot of friends, but I absolutely lost my mind. And once I left, I never felt any of those feelings or saw anything like that ever again. Now, that was kind of a long story, so long story short, the girl saw a ghost hanging. A young lady, probably, I'm assuming, probably about between 19 and 23, 25 maybe. And the story is vividly written. I could actually see everything as she was mentioning. And I have got to say, that kind of creeped me out. Because, quite honestly, if you think about it, if you could actually look into a mirror and then not know what happened for the past 45 minutes, what would you say? If you forgot what you did within the time span that you could die, what would you say? You could actually die within a split second, but just think about it. Put down in the comments section below if you thought about it and what you thought about. Thank you. Now, besides the strip clubs and the haunted car ride with death and the haunted bathroom and all that, besides all of that, along with the camera, you can't forget about that camera, because that's creepy as well. If you wake up and you see pictures of yourself sleeping that you never took, you would want to know what's happened. Like, who was there with you? What was there with you? Especially if nothing was disturbed. Now, this next story is called From the Mouth of Babes. Mouth of Babes. Makes me think Claire. But From the Mouth of Babes probably means like babies, but yeah. This was written by Haunted the Buffalo. And now let's go ahead and get started into the story. When my older sister was born, my parents moved into a small house, and in that house, the laundry room was right across the kitchen table. So my sister would often be seen waving and staring and giggling while looking into the laundry room. This behavior continued after a long time, and when she could finally take the talk, they asked her who she was talking to. To this, she looked at them and said, "The little boy." To this, my parents asked if he was nice, and to this she waited a moment and then replies, "Yes." After this, she seemed to grow out of it and forgot all about it, and to my parents' relief, dismissed it as an imaginary friend. They never mentioned it after that. When I was born, I exhibited the same behavior, and when I could talk, they asked me who I was talking to. To this I replied, "The little boy." Once again, they asked me if he was nice, and I did the same thing as my sister, although a little different. "Yes," I replied, "although I think he is lying." That is very creepy. It kind of gives me the chills. All of these ghost stories are kind of giving me the chills. It kind of makes me want to watch videos of little kittens afterwards. Yes, you would want to watch little kittens after this too. Especially with sound effects like these. Just wait a couple of seconds and you will hear it. Oh, shh. That scared me. That like literally scared me. I'm gonna stop it before the next one plays. I am literally getting creeped out right now. These scary stories are kind of really bothering me. Like, I'm getting a little bit edgy because of them. But yeah, as of right now, this cover for the Darkest Hour, I got offline, but I'm going to end up making my own. It's going to be better than this. I just thought this was a good cover for the podcast for now. So this next one is probably going to be our last. It's called The Wrong Parents from Lady Stoneheart. When I was little, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and go into my parents' room, and sleep next to my mom. One night when I was about 5 or 6, I had this really vivid dream where I woke up scared and went into my mom's room to sleep with her. When I went in, however, there was a set of parents on the bed, and a set of identical parents on the floor. I instinctively knew in my dream that I had to wake the right parents, because the wrong parents were evil. So I chose the parents on the floor. I distinctly remember thinking that the evil imposter parents would try to trick me, so I chose the parents on the floor. When I went over to the parents on the floor, they both opened their eyes, and where their eyeballs should have been, it was just brightly glowing red. That was when I actually woke up. Being a scared little kid, I of course went right to my parents' room to sleep next to my mom. There was a set of parents on the bed and a set of parents on the floor. I literally pissed myself. The second set of parents was actually a pile of unfolded laundry, but I will never forget the fear that struck my little 6-year-old heart at that very minute. Whew, that would actually scare the living crap out of myself. Alright, we have about 10 minutes left of this podcast, so yeah. I kind of don't want to read the next one, since it's actually a pretty long one. In fact, about 10-15 minutes long. It's the last one, so it's going to be a little bit more creepy. It's called The Truculent Truck from Sorsa McNasty. Now, I have to say this, and I have to say this very, very clearly. This will be the story that we will read in the next podcast. So with all these scary stories, put in the comment section below if you would like to hear some other scary stories. Some dark, creepy, and hopefully something that will scare the living shit out of me. But just put in the comment section below of some very, very scary stories, and I will read them on here. Or if you have any past experience of your own, put down in the comment section below, because I would love to read your past experiences on the darkest hour. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Darkest Hour, as it will be on, hopefully, in the near future. This episode, along with the episodes in the future, hopefully, you'll be able to get these on iTunes, Google Play, Spreaker, and whatever, and Spotify, and hopefully any other sites that do podcasts. Because I want to try to get my podcast out there for everyone to hear, hopefully free. Because I don't want to have people pay for my podcast. But if I have to do a podcast price, it will be $1. Why $1, you ask? Because if I'm going to make any kind of money off of a podcast, I want it to be as little as possible, but also helping me. But of course, it will always be free on YouTube. So don't give your hopes up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, post this on your social media page, be it MySpace, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr, and I will catch you guys later. This is Zavtar, signing off. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Darkest Hour, and I will be seeing you guys in the next episode. And I hope to be able to read some of your very, very vivid recollections of what's happened to you in the past. I would love to read.